On the quiet edge of Willow Street stood an old two-story house with broken windows, a rusted gate, and ivy crawling up its walls like frozen veins. Children crossed the road whenever they passed by, adults shut their curtains before nightfall, and no one dared speak about what happened there 12 years ago. Yet everything changed the day a new family moved into the neighborhood, unaware of the secrets buried beneath its rotting floorboards. It began on a rainy Tuesday evening. The street was soaked in silver reflections, and thunder crawled across the sky like a warning. A teenage girl named Emily, curious beyond caution, noticed a faint glow inside the abandoned house while walking home from school. Everyone knew the place had been empty for years, no visitors, no repairs, no life. But that night, behind the cracked glass, a light flickered. Not steady like electricity, but swaying like a candle. Emily stopped, frozen, rain dripping from her hair, watching the orange flame move deeper into the house as if someone carried it. The gate creaked open slightly, though no wind blew strong enough to move it. Emily rushed home, heart racing, but her mind stayed back at Willow Street. She could not sleep. That house had long been associated with the story of Isaac Miller, a boy who vanished inside without a trace. Some said his parents lost their minds searching for him, others whispered that he still wandered the halls at night. By dawn, Emily's curiosity had grown into obsession. She gathered her friends, Lucas and Hannah, during lunch break and told them everything she saw. Lucas laughed first, calling it a trick of the weather, but even he couldn't hide the uneasiness in his voice. Hannah, who had always been braver than she looked, suggested they investigate after school. The decision hung in the air like electricity, thrilling and dangerous at the same time. At 5 p.m. they stood outside the gate. The street was unusually silent, as if warned by something unseen. Emily pushed the iron gate gently. It opened with a drawn-out groan. Inside, the yard was overgrown with wild grass and shattered tiles. Each step felt like trespassing into time itself. The front door, swollen by years of rain, opened after a hard shove. Dust swirled like spirits waking up from slumber. The living room smelled of damp wood and something else, old, metallic, unsettling. Furniture lay overturned, photographs faded on the walls, and a piano sat in the corner with one broken leg. Lucas noticed scratch marks on the floor, long and messy, trailing from the hallway to the basement door. Hannah found a torn piece of fabric caught in a nail, dark red in color, as if it once belonged to someone running. None of them spoke. The silence inside felt heavier than the night outside. Suddenly, a cold draft swept through the corridor and the basement door swung open by itself. A dim staircase descended into darkness. The air shifted, carrying a faint whisper that none of them could explain, but they heard it. A name. Isaac. Emily stepped back, trembling, yet something deeper pulled her forward. The whisper grew clearer, as if calling them. Lucas reached for the switch but the lights were dead. Hannah lit her phone flashlight. The weak beam revealed old stains on the steps, brown and dried like memories too dark to wash away. Against every instinct telling them to run, they descended slowly into the unknown. Halfway down, the basement light flickered alive on its own. A single bulb swung from the ceiling, revealing shelves filled with old toys, rusted cages, and scribbled drawings of a boy with hollow eyes. In the center of the room lay a wooden box, small enough to carry but large enough to hide something precious, or horrifying. Emily approached it, pulse pounding. She touched the lid. A soft thump echoed from inside. Once. Then again. Something was moving inside the box. And before anyone could react, the lid slowly began to lift. The lid rose with a slow, creaking sound that scraped against the silence of the basement. Dust floated upward like disturbed memories. Emily, Lucas, and Hannah stood frozen, eyes glued to the wooden box. Inside, instead of something sinister, there lay a stack of neatly folded papers tied with an old ribbon, and beneath them, a small silver locket glimmering under the flickering bulb. Hannah exhaled sharply, tension breaking for a brief moment. Lucas forced a shaky laugh, insisting it was just someone's forgotten belongings. But Emily's instincts whispered otherwise. Something felt wrong. The room seemed to breathe around them. Emily picked up the locket. It felt cold, unnaturally cold, like it had been stored in ice rather than a dusty basement. She opened it carefully. Inside was a faded photograph of Isaac Miller, the missing boy. He had a gentle smile, but his eyes held a strange emptiness, almost like he knew something he shouldn't. On the opposite side of the locket, a date was engraved. The same date Isaac disappeared. Lucas stepped forward to examine the papers. They were diary entries, scribbled in a child's handwriting, shaky and inconsistent. They told a story of fear, strange voices at night, and a shadow that lived in the walls. The last entry ended abruptly with a chilling line, "If anyone finds this, it wants me next." Before they could process it, a sudden thud echoed upstairs. Something heavy had moved across the floor. Their bodies tensed. Lucas clenched the papers, Hannah gripped her flashlight tighter, and Emily held the locket to her chest like a fragile truth. They shared one quick glance, silently agreeing to check the upper floor. The moment they stepped out of the basement, the door slammed shut behind them with a violent force, making Hannah scream. Lucas pulled the handle, but it wouldn't budge. The house had decided they were staying. They moved toward the staircase leading to the second floor. With every step, the wood groaned as if warning them to turn back. The air grew colder, and the hallway stretched like a tunnel with peeling wallpaper and shadows lurking in every corner. Halfway up, Emily noticed something disturbing: the framed photographs on the stairway wall had changed. Earlier, they were faded family pictures, but now each photo showed the same boy, Isaac, staring directly ahead. His eyes seemed to follow them. In the final frame near the landing, Isaac stood inside the house's doorway, as if captured the moment before he vanished. Reaching the second floor, they found 3 rooms. The first door was cracked open. Inside, a bedroom lay untouched except for a rocking chair moving slowly on its own, as though someone invisible occupied it. Hannah turned pale, whispering for them to check the next room instead. Lucas pushed open the second door, revealing a study filled with dusty books and a shattered mirror reflecting 3 figures, but the reflections were wrong. In the mirror, the children looked older, drained, and hollow-eyed. Emily's reflection held the locket, but in the reflection, it bled dark liquid. Lucas stepped back immediately, slamming the door shut. Only one room remained at the far end of the hallway. Unlike the others, its door was freshly painted, untouched by time. A golden plaque above it read, "Isaac's room." A chill crawled up their spines. Emily reached for the doorknob, but it turned before she touched it. The door opened slowly, revealing a small room filled with toys, drawings, and a neatly made bed, as if waiting for someone to return. In the center of the room, sitting quietly on the floor, was a boy. He looked no older than 12. Pale skin. Dark, sunken eyes. His clothes old-fashioned, dirty at the sleeves. He stared at them without blinking. Emily whispered, voice barely steady, "Isaac." The boy lifted his head slightly. His lips parted just enough for a single sentence to escape, a whisper that crawled into their bones. "You shouldn't have opened the box." Before they could move, the room plunged into darkness. The door slammed shut behind them. A chilling laughter echoed around the walls, and something began to move in the shadows. The darkness in Isaac's room felt thick, almost alive. Hannah's flashlight flickered weakly before stabilizing, casting a pale beam across the walls. Isaac was no longer in front of them. The spot where he sat was now empty, leaving only a small stuffed bear lying on the floor, staring upward with button eyes. A cold breath brushed past Emily's ear. Lucas grabbed her arm, urging them toward the door, but when he pulled the handle, it refused to move. Locked from the outside. The laughter intensified, circling the room like a whispering wind. Shadows crawled along the wall, forming figures, first small, then stretching tall and twisted. Hannah squeezed her eyes shut, trembling, while Lucas searched frantically for another exit. Emily forced herself closer to the walls, scanning the drawings pinned across the room. Unlike the diary entries, these pictures were more detailed, more disturbing. A little boy sketched repeatedly beside a towering dark figure. In some drawings, the figure stood behind Isaac. In others, it dragged him toward the basement. One drawing showed the wooden box, but instead of holding papers, it held Isaac himself, eyes hollow, mouth silent. Suddenly, the shadows halted and Isaac stood again in the center of the room, but his face was different, older, gaunt, eyes gleaming unnaturally. He spoke calmly, as if reciting something long rehearsed. He told them that years ago, something came into the house, something not human. It fed on fear and silence. It took him first, trapping him between worlds. His parents tried to save him, but the entity grew stronger. They disappeared next. Anyone who entered since was swallowed the same way, leaving only memories and echoes. Emily's voice broke as she asked how they could escape. Isaac's eyes dimmed with sorrow. He said the box was a seal, the only thing keeping the entity contained. By opening it, they freed what remained trapped inside. Now the house was awake, hungry again. The locket Emily held began to burn against her palm, a warning. Isaac stepped back, his form flickering like candlelight in wind. He whispered that there was one chance left, return the box to where it belonged, deep beneath the house in the forgotten room. Only then could they leave. But the entity would not let them do it easily. The room shook violently. Toys flew off shelves, books hurled across the floor, and the rocking chair toppled as if pushed by invisible hands. A black shadow rose from the corner, enormous and shapeless, two hollow eyes glowing from within. Lucas pulled both girls toward the door one more time, and with a desperate slam of his shoulder, the lock snapped. They ran into the hallway, Isaac's voice fading behind them like a distant echo begging them to hurry. The house shifted around them, corridors stretching and twisting, stairs leading to dead ends. Every step felt heavier, every second tighter with the feeling that something crawled just behind their heels. Hannah screamed when she saw a hand, pale and long, reach from the wall to grasp her ankle. Lucas kicked it away, pulling her up as they sprinted down the steps. The basement door stood ahead, slightly open as though waiting. But as they reached the bottom, the light bulb above burst, drowning them in darkness again. A whisper slithered through the hallway, cold enough to freeze their breath. "You opened the box. Now one of you must stay." Emily clutched the locket and the box tighter, refusing to let fear claim her. Lucas and Hannah stood beside her, shaking, but determined. They knew what they had to do, reach the forgotten room, lock the box away, and face whatever waited in the dark. With trembling resolve, Emily pushed the basement door open. And something unseen dragged them inside. The moment the basement door pulled them in, they tumbled down the steps, hitting the cold concrete floor. The door slammed shut above them, locking out the faint safety of the world beyond. Their breaths echoed in the pitch-black chamber, broken only by the distant, wet sound of something crawling. Hannah's phone flickered back to life, its weak glow revealing the far wall, now cracked open, exposing a narrow passage leading deeper underground. The house had revealed the way itself, as though eager to watch the end unfold. Emily held the box close, her knuckles white. Lucas supported Hannah, who limped slightly from the fall. With no other option, they stepped inside the passage. The walls tightened around them, the air bitter and suffocating. Strange markings covered the stone, symbols of protection, scratched violently as if someone tried to destroy them. The crawling sound grew louder, accompanied by a low growl resonating from the dark ahead. Lucas picked up a broken metal pipe from the floor, gripping it like a weapon, though it felt small and helpless against whatever awaited them. The passage opened into a cavernous room hidden beneath the house. In the center stood an old wooden table, the surface stained with time. A hollow pit lay beneath it, carved into the ground like a grave waiting for its final occupant. This was the forgotten room Isaac mentioned. The locket around Emily's neck burned hot, urging her toward the table. As she stepped forward, a violent gust of wind extinguished Hannah's flashlight and the chamber fell to black again. Then, two pale lights emerged, eyes enormous, hollow, watching. The entity crawled from the shadows, its form shifting like smoke but its limbs long and unmistakably human in shape. It moved with unnatural speed, circling them as if choosing who to take. Hannah sobbed quietly. Lucas stood in front of both girls, pipe raised though his hands trembled. The creature spoke without a mouth, a voice echoing inside their minds. One must remain. Only then will the seal close. Emily's heart pounded. She understood. The box required a life, Isaac had been the last sacrifice. To seal the entity again, someone had to take his place. The realization crushed her like a weight. Hannah begged her not to think that way, but Emily knew she was the one who opened the box first. She stepped forward slowly, tears forming though her voice was steady. Lucas grabbed her arm, shaking his head violently. He wouldn't let her. Not alone. Suddenly, another voice echoed from behind them, a weaker, fading voice. Isaac stood at the entrance of the chamber, half transparent, barely holding form. He looked calmer now, peaceful. He approached Emily and placed his small hand over the box. The shadows recoiled as if burned. Isaac whispered that a soul trapped unwillingly could be freed if another released it willingly. He had waited years for someone brave enough to try. Emily placed the box onto the table. Isaac nodded once, and his figure began to dissolve like morning mist. The locket burned bright, then shattered into silver dust. The entity screamed, a sound that tore through the room like thunder. Isaac sacrificed the last of his lingering existence to complete the seal himself. The box snapped shut, glowing with intense light. The cavern trembled, walls collapsing inward, and the creature vanished with one final, furious howl. Lucas grabbed Emily and Hannah, pulling them toward the exit as the floor cracked beneath them. They sprinted up the basement stairs, bursting out through the front door just as the house groaned deeply, then fell silent. Not destroyed, not broken. Just still. Lifeless. The gate stood open behind them, rain beginning to fall gently. No lights flickered inside ever again. Days passed. Authorities found nothing unusual, just an old abandoned property. No signs of Isaac, no proof of what happened underground. But Emily, Lucas, and Hannah knew. They sometimes heard the faint sound of a music box at night, carried through the quiet wind on Willow Street. Not haunting. Not threatening. Just a memory. A reminder of the boy who finally found rest. And of the house that sleeps, until someone opens the box again.